Hey guys, for this guide for Dr. Ratio, I'll be giving you his best relic, light cones, team comps, rotations, and his pros and cons. Do note that this is all speculation and subjected to changes. For any changes made to him, I'll update you guys in the comment section. I'll upload a new video when he's officially out for his relic DPS calculations. Here are his required materials and skill priority. For an overview on his kit, he's a hunt unit which focuses on single target damage, and his main damage source comes from his follow-up attacks. You definitely want a debuffer with him, especially Silver Wolf, to allow his follow-up attacks to hit more often. For his Eidolon breakpoint, E1, E2, and E6. He is totally zero sufficient. For his E1 at the start of the battle, he gains X buffs, receive X stacks for each type of buff. Talent buff stacks increases by X stack and increases his duration by X turns. His E2 gives him an attack percentage equal to his attack for every debuff currently on the enemy target for X times only, which gives a rough 15 to 30% DPS boost, 20% on average. His E4 gives him energy for each time a skill is buffed. E6 increases his ulti effect for X additional time and increases his triggered talent follow-up damage. Honestly, his Eidolons aren't that good. For his best price per performance ratio, players should go for E1 or Signature Lycoon, depending if they have good Lycoon options, and E2 at max. E1 is nice to have as it will increase his damage and follow-up attack chances faster. E2 is only for those who are aiming for 0 cycle clear, as it's not a permanent buff. How to build Dr. Ratio? For his main stat, for the body you want crit damage, and for the boots you want speed over attack percentage. With speed boots, Dr. Ratio will take more turns, which allows him to trigger his follow-up attacks more often. Substat priority, speed till 134, after that focus on 55 to 60% total crit rate, and focus on crit damage, and lastly attack percentage, where you want to focus more towards crit rate and crit damage. Onto his relic set, is very straightforward. His best in slot will be 4-piece Grand Duke. You won't be able to get the max X stat buff, but its damage will be the highest by around 10%. 4-piece Quantum is also really good since you'll be putting a debuffer in your team, especially with Silver Wolf. 4-piece Imaginary set is also good. You can either run a 2+2 set Grand Duke with Imaginary or attack percentage set. And now for the Planar Ornaments, main stat for the rope you want attack percentage only, as energy regen rope doesn't help to hit any ulti breakpoints. Only E4 does help to hit ulti uptime, and it comes with a huge damage loss. And for the op, imaginary damage boost only, as there's huge damage loss from attack percentage. His best and only Planar Ornament set is Inert Salsato, as his follow-up attack and ulti gives him the highest DPS output. His second best in slot is Glamour, but requires 135 speed. At last place is Space Sailing Station. Would recommend players to farm for Salsato unless they have triple S tier substat on the other two set pieces. Now for his Lycoons, I'll start from the worst to best. It's very hard to calculate his damage now, so I won't be putting in numbers. At last place we have only Silence Remain. You want this Lycoon at S5 and only if you have no other options, as the crit buff needs 2 or lesser enemies on the field. At third place we have both cruising in the Stellar Sea at S5 and Sleep Like the Dead. For Sleep Like the Dead, it's just a consistent Lycoon with 30% crit damage, but it's still pretty good. For Stellar Sea is a very solid option, which gives you high crit rate and attack buff. You don't really need to worry about the attack buff, as Dr. Ratio damage is high enough to kill off enemies really quickly. Both of these Lycoon will roughly perform the same depending on the different scenarios. At second place is Dr. Ratio Signature Lycoon. I speculate that it will increase his crit damage by X percentage, deals X percentage of crit damage to the enemy target for each debuff sustained up to a max of X stacks. When using ultimate, grants X effect, increasing the damage dealt by X percentage, while follow-up attack ignores X percentage of the target's defense, lasting for X turns. Overall, his Lycoon is nice to have, which gives him a rough 10 to 15% DPS boost compared to both Stellar Sea and Sleep Like the Dead. There is one main downside to his Lycoon, is that you need a debuffer which can apply debuffs for the max DPS. At first place, his best Lycoon will be Swordplay, which is very surprising as you gain the max buff from this Lycoon instantly with a follow-up attack, where at S5 is way better than his Signature Lycoon and is a 4-star Lycoon. And now for his team comps and rotations. His best mono team comp will be Silver Wolf, Whelp or E6 Xingque, and Fushen or Locha, which outscales all other DPS team comps. You can also use any sub DPS unit as long as your second DPS has the same element as the boss, but preferably with less skill point hungry DPS like Blade or Jingliu or even Topaz. His best standard DPS team comp will be Bronya or Renmei with Silver Wolf and a 5-star sustain. For his free to play team comp, you want Tingyun, Pella or Silver Wolf and Whelp, and a sustain unit. Tingyun is great for the energy regen to help Dr. Ratio get his ulti and follow-up attack more frequently. Now for a tier list on the units which are best for Dr. Ratio, Silver Wolf definitely triple S tier. For double S tier, Bronya, Renmei, Fushan, Ocha, Huo, Qingque, Well, and Tingyun. For S tier, it will be just Bella and Topaz. For Doctor's Ratio pros and cons, pros, highest DPS in the game, especially with him doing follow-up attacks every turn. He has the highest DPS with a premium team comp compared to any other team comp. Harder to get outskilled compared to other DPS units as he scales better with an expensive team comp. The single target damage is as high or better than Zilla, though for one-shot potential is not as high unless with higher Eidolons. Cons, he is harder to build as he's very substat hungry. He requires an expensive team comp to get his max potential, especially with Silver Wolf. His design is pretty bad, may still get outskilled in future, especially for DPS units. So should you go for Dr. Ratio? If you don't have an imaginary DPS unit, yes. If you have Silver Wolf and Fushan but don't have Zilla, definitely yes. Do you have Imbibitor Lunate? No. If you don't have Silver Wolf, maybe no. Overall, his damage is pretty insane, especially for whales. You definitely want to E6 him for an insane one-shot potential for any boss in 2 turns. And that's it for this guide.